being joined today by Welcome Churches. Welcome Churches is a charity set up in the UK to help UK churches to welcome people who are seeking refuge here. Our vision is for every refugee in the UK to be welcomed by their local church. And over the last few years, we have seen a huge growth in the number of churches engaging with that issue and signing up to be a refugee welcoming church. At the start of 2023, there was over 1,000 churches in the Welcome Network at Welcome Churches, churches that said we are ready to be refugee welcoming, which is phenomenal. And that number is going up and up all the time. My name is Emily. I'm one of the co-CEOs of Welcome Churches, and I helped to set it up as its own charity in 2018. We came out of a local charity in Derby. That's how we grew, and as we saw more and more need for more churches to be engaged in welcoming refugees, we expanded to equip churches across the UK to get involved and to enjoy the blessing that refugees are to the UK church. And I'm joined today by Samuel. Samuel, you work for Welcome Churches as well, don't you? You joined us in autumn 2022, and you had quite a journey before then, and you've got such a wealth of experience, haven't you, that you're now investing into Welcome Churches, which is fantastic.
Yes, yeah, that's correct, yeah. That's correct.
What were some of the things that you were involved in before Welcome Churches?
Yeah, so before Welcome Churches, I was involved in supporting refugees.
Mm-hmm.
Starting from Egypt, and I went to Lebanon, and then in Finland. Okay. I started supporting refugees since 2006. Mm. And before that, also when I moved to the UK in 2017, I began to support refugees through King Sam project as well. So I've been supporting refugees and asylum seekers for all these years in different countries. Yeah.
Fantastic. So you've had a journey from Sudan to Egypt to Finland and then to the UK, where you were involved in a local project in Bedford before joining us. So you've seen lots of different examples of God's church at work and God's church welcoming people who are seeking refuge across the globe, which must be a fantastic thing to see.
Yeah, actually it's a blessing, to have this long journey. For the last 30 years, I live in 7 countries. And in all these 7 countries, I joined churches, local congregations.
Yeah.
And it was a blessing to feel welcome and to feel supported and to feel like I'm part of this. I'm one of this. And whenever I leave any part of where I have been, you miss them, because you feel like you belong to them. And the welcoming is really what everybody's looking for, especially when you are a stranger, you don't know anybody. Yeah. So it's really good. So all these memories just help me to be who I am today, and being willing to help other people as well, because so many people helped me on the way, for all these years. Yeah,
that's amazing. I think one of the amazing things about refugee ministry is how it connects God's church together across the world. And so no longer are our brothers and sisters just people who are in other countries that we read newsletters about or we pray for in our congregations, but they're people who travel and travel from country to country, and we connect with them that way as well, and we connect with God's church that way as well.
That's right.
So many times we've heard stories of refugees who say, I was helped in the church in this country, then I was helped by the church in this country, and then I arrived in the UK and I was met by the church here as well. And what an amazing witness of who our God is, and the church at its best, really. Yeah.
Exactly. And a few years ago in Finland, so there was some kind of asking refugees, like, what do they think about the church? So it happened that people trust the church. When you say I'm from the church, I'm from a local church, people trust you. And when they trust you, then you are able to help them.
Interesting.
And that's really a blessing, as the local churches, because we represent God in our community. So when people come to us, so basically being open, being welcoming is really a blessing that will bring people to be able, to see that we can help them. We can help them to start new life, and all these things. It's a blessing.
Yeah,
really
absolutely.
Blessing.
Yeah, and so today we're talking about how refugees are a blessing to the UK church. But we've already started to touch on some of those things and touch on the different themes of blessing and the blessing to the individuals as they are met by the church, and also the blessing they are in the community. But I suppose for us that starts in the Bible, doesn't it? And how we see God's blessing in the Bible, which has led us into this work, isn't it? But where do you see that blessing in the Bible of why we should be welcoming people seeking refuge?
Yeah, that's really a good question, because even though the Bible doesn't repeatedly talking about refugees, but they talk about the strangers. So strangers among us today are refugees and asylum seekers who come to us from other parts of the world. And when people come to us, they are individuals. Each one of them has a unique story.
Yeah.
And behind that unique story is something that we can learn from. So when people come to us, they bring us culture. They bring us experiences. So long time ago in this part of the world, the church used to send missionaries to other nations.
Yeah.
And as being part of learning how missionaries started, for example, in Africa, they would go and learn the culture from the beginning. They would learn local languages. They would begin to translate the Bible, the hymns, and establish churches. Now God has done it in a way that instead of us going to other parts of the world, so God has sent people among us. We can learn from them the same thing that we're supposed to learn in their nations. And this is a blessing, so it brings us something that we can be proud of.
Yeah.
It makes us richer, and it makes us, instead of just local church, it makes us like now a universal church, which is the biblical conception of the church. The church is represented in our local congregations, but also the universal church, where we have brothers and sisters everywhere. So the Bible talks about the church as, believers who are anywhere in the world. And that's the bigger church, And each one, the Bible talks about them as living witnesses. But now when people come to us, we see this like this is an application of the biblical conception of the church, representing from, starting from the local church and then to the worldwide church.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's so exciting. And for me, the two things that I think about in the Bible about the church being blessed by people who are seeking refuge in the UK is in Acts, when the Holy Spirit comes at Pentecost. It was when all the nations were gathered together that God's Spirit came in a really special way. And again in Revelation, where every tribe and every tongue is gathered before the throne of God, that's where God's presence is, isn't it? When all the tribes are gathered together. So there's something really exciting for us when we come together as different nations and different cultures, and we get to do that in our own communities now, which we 100 years ago never have dreamt of and never thought possible, which is really exciting. So who is it who is coming to the UK as refugees? Who have we got in our communities around the UK?
Yeah, so people who come to the UK as refugees are divided into certain categories. The first category are asylum seekers, and then we have resettled refugees. Then we have people who come through schemes, the government scheme, for example, for Syrian, for Ukrainian, and Hong Kongers, and as well as So these are the categories of the refugees coming to us, to the UK right now.
Yeah, great. Yeah. So we have people who travel by their own means and come to the UK and arrive at a UK border, and then we have people who come through a resettlement scheme or through some sort of government programme to come to the UK. And some of those people are classed as refugees, and some might have a slightly different term, like we've seen with people arriving from Hong Kong. They're not classed as refugees as such, but they have a particular visa, the BNO visa for people arriving from Hong Kong, to help them settle in the UK as well. So there are different ways that people arrive.
That's right.
Yeah, it can get very complicated very easily, can't it? And helping people to navigate who is coming to the UK and what that looks like in their local community is something that Welcome Churches helps with, isn't it? To help people work out what this looks like practically in their area, because we've also got people coming from Ukraine, which has been very prevalent over the last few years, And for some communities, the main way that they're welcoming people is Ukrainians being either hosted by people in the church or have found housing in those areas, and that's a particular group as well, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and the most important thing in this now as local churches is that we have all these people in our communities, around our churches. And these are the people we need to welcome.
Definitely.
And despite of where they come from and how they come, so we need to welcome them. They are there for us, and that's where we step in as a church. Even though the authorities are dealing with the legal part of all this, but we deal with the practical part of it. In being welcome, being who we are as churches, to welcome them and make them feel at home. Despite of what happened to them. Yeah.
And there's no getting away from the fact that this is a political issue, isn't it? And it's something that makes our headlines a lot and divides opinion over who should come to the UK and who shouldn't, and different politicians have different views on that. And as Welcome Churches, we're trying for the church to say, whatever your political background, whatever you think of the politics, these are people who are seeking refuge and who are in our communities and who need to be known by the church and known as people first before the politics.
That's right. Yeah.
Definitely.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
I often say we fear what we don't know, and so that is another reason why it's so important for us to get to know people as people. Because if we don't get to know people, that's when the fear can take hold in our communities, and there can be negative consequences of that. So how have you seen the church being blessed when they have welcomed? What are some of the stories that stand out to you of how people have been welcomed by their church, and some of the blessings that have come from that?
Yeah, so one of the blessings I've seen is that when we have people coming to us, first of all, when we welcome them, we learn from them. We learn from their culture. We learn from their experiences. We learn from who they are as human beings. So one of the things that really stand for me is me visiting one of the churches for the last few months, where there was a baptism. One of the refugees was baptized. But the story I heard from that local church, they said that just 1 year ago, we were just a very small local congregation taking care of our community and our members. And then when other people came as refugees, just one person stepped into the church and said, I'm new here, I don't know anything. And then they began to help that person, and that person went and invited friends. Now, in 1 year, the church has found themselves to be like an international church in a way. People speaking different languages, services being translated to different languages. So this is something new for us. This is a blessing. And also they are learning English, and also people are learning from them, from their culture, from where they come from. And for example, if we have a person from a certain nation, we would be interested to know about that nation. And we can know it only from them. So that's a blessing. Also, they come to be part of our community. So it makes us a bigger family as a church, as a local church. So that's really a blessing to see this church just in 1 year turning from just talking about their own members and own local congregation. Now they have people whom they can learn from.
Definitely.
And that's a blessing, and that's the mission, without going to any other nation. Now God has made it possible that people will come from other nations to be part of us, and we are learning from them. That's a blessing as well.
Absolutely. I think the baptism element of people seeking refuge is another part that's really, really exciting for churches, that there are either people coming to the UK who already follow Jesus and might have been persecuted in their home country for following Jesus, which is a reason that they fled and come to the UK. And in that instance, we should be honouring our brothers and sisters in that position for all that they have been through as they have sought to follow Jesus in some of the most dangerous places, and really upholding them doing all we can to make them feel welcome in our communities. And then there's also people who have come from countries where religious freedom hasn't been allowed, or there's been one religion that has dominated, and they've got an opportunity in the UK to enjoy that freedom that they've not had in their home country. And for some of those people, they want to hear more about Jesus in a way they've not had chance to before, and that's another hugely exciting thing for our churches as well, isn't it?
Exactly. And also, one of the things I've seen also from that congregation is that the people who joined them basically began to ask, can we volunteer? Can we help? Can we support other people as well? And many of them end up supporting other people through the activities of the church, and it was really good to see them. They don't just want to sit to be part of, they just want to do something. So now they bring something new, and then, which is really a blessing as well for the church and the local church as well.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
So, really, for a church that wants to welcome refugees, the way that I've kind of seen it is that there's two ways of going about that. There's one that's being very proactive and intentionally finding out who is coming to the UK or who is coming to that community and either seeking asylum or has arrived through a resettlement scheme, and intentionally going out of your way to meet those people. And then there's also kind of a reactive side as well, isn't there, of we've heard that these people have arrived in our community, or we've heard that this hotel is being used near us to support people who are seeking asylum. And so we've seen this, haven't we, in the Welcome Network, that we have churches in both of those instances. One that's very proactive and, okay, who can we welcome and where can we find people who are seeking refuge? And then the reactive kind of, these people have arrived and they need a welcome as well. So if for churches in the UK that are thinking, yes, we should be more refugee welcoming, and this is something that we should be doing, what are the first steps for them?
Yeah, so it's really, as you mentioned, it's really traditionally there has been always two kind of churches.
Yeah.
So the church that will wait for people to come, even from the community, but also another church, local church that will go to look for people in the community, So this has been there all the time. But with refugees especially, is the fact that when people come, usually they might not find us very easily because they don't know anything about us, about the area.
Yeah.
So it would be easier for the church to go.
Yeah.
If you hear, for example, that there are refugees, so you go and welcome them where they are and ask them if they would like help. And we also have so many partners who help. For example, if people are in a hotel, so basically the hotel, those who are running the hotel would be able to connect a local church with the people who are there and see how can they help them in a way. But the other part of this is that every church now, especially through the network, I think most of the churches have really found their way to do this very well.
Yeah.
So most of the churches have known, so they have been very active in terms of going out, welcoming people, starting from where they are. And I think that's a blessing. And that's something new. And I feel like God also is encouraging churches to look into to local mission in a different way, that, we need to go and look for people and welcome them. Yeah. So now, when people are in our community and they are among us, it is just a one simple question like, how can we help you? And people will come up with different things. People are also different. But most importantly, there are people who will just want to be part of us. They are Christian believers. They have been part of congregation somewhere. There are people who have questions about anything.
Yeah.
And there are people who are basically just want to know, who we are, introducing ourselves to them.
Yeah.
So all this really makes the mission of the church in the community to be really something that need to be reviewed, need to be, and one of the things about welcome churches is that we provide resources for that, training, so through training, the resources we have would help local churches to be welcoming, to know what to do in terms of all the questions that people have. And I think that's a blessing.
Definitely.
And that's how networking is really a blessing to the church itself, because you don't need to struggle with questions that you have as a local church. You just need to basically connect with other people, other churches. And when we have a network like Welcome Churches, is where we are helped, and we should not be alone. Yeah.
Definitely. And we have such cross-cultural expertise on our team, don't we, as well, in churches? I mean, we've already heard from you, Samuel, that you have been in Sudan, you've been in Egypt, you've been in Finland, you've been in the UK. I mean, just you alone brings that huge expertise to our team and ultimately to the UK church, which is fantastic. But we have lots of other people as well who've lived cross-culturally and who speak lots of different languages, which can then feed into local church settings and the training that we offer to churches as well.
Yeah.
So really the first step is to join our Welcome Network, isn't it?
That's right.
And by being a part of the Welcome Network, that just says we are here and we want to welcome refugees, and whatever that looks like, we're here. And if a refugee comes to this area, they can get referred to that local church and be connected to them for a welcome. Either that refugee can get in touch with them themselves via our network, or another agency or another church can say, can you give this person a welcome? Can you say hi to them as they've arrived?
Yeah.
As often, lots of people do move. It's a very transient group, the refugee population, isn't it? And that's one of the benefits of our network, is that as people move around the UK, they can be connected into community more quickly than they might have been otherwise as well. And then after the churches have joined the network, there are lots of other opportunities and different trainings and projects that we run that can help churches to do that.
Exactly, yeah. One of the things I've heard from some of the churches that I've met, especially training, so is that one of the challenges is that people move all the time. So you support somebody and then suddenly it's moved to other places.
Absolutely.
But the blessing with that is that we have this referral system where you don't need to worry about them, because where they go, there will be also somebody, a church that will support them. And I think that's the best part of this for me, is basically you support somebody and then you feel like, oh, I should do more with this person, but it's now moved. You don't need to worry, because where it's moved, there is also a network member, a church that will help them. So one of the churches, for example, which I visited, so they have been supported for a while, really, really wonderful, really connected very well with the church, and and then suddenly it was moved to another place, and then they said, like, oh, he's now moved, and but they were able to refer that person to the new location, to the new place where he has moved, and just the next day he was supported because of this referral. So you don't need to worry about that.
No.
That's the importance of networking, working together.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the stories that stands out in my mind was back when in the Afghan crisis, when the Taliban took over Kabul and the rest of Afghanistan, and we had a lot of people arriving in the UK. One of the families that we had been supporting in a hotel then got moved to a village in Scotland, and we were thinking, oh my goodness, this is this is somewhere that is not going to be used to having people from different cultures arrive, and we were able to ring up the local church and say, we know of an Afghan family coming to your village, can you welcome them? And this church said, we have been praying this week for how we can help people who have fled Afghanistan. Absolutely, we will be there. And that church then bent over backwards to help that family. So, and we've heard many other stories of that, when we rang churches up and said, we know these people who arrived, and they said, we've been praying for these people to come. So maybe in your church, you should start praying for God to bring some refugees to your community as well. You never know what he might do. But we also might have some people who are watching who are from a refugee background as well, and might be looking for ways of thinking about how they can be a blessing to their church and what that might look like. Could you, what sort of practical steps could someone from a refugee background take to get more involved in their church community, to help bridge some of those cross-cultural divides? What sort of things might you say to them, Samuel?
Yeah, so one of the things I can say is that the first step at all is to feel welcome. So when we welcome people, we give them, the smile that they need and the support that they need.
Yeah.
The next step is for this person to go through resettlement and integration to our local church as well, to the society, to the community. So one of the steps that we need to do as a church is the fact that we need to support them and encourage them to bring the gift, to bring the experience they have to share, not to feel that they are like visitors, they are like guests among us. No, we encourage them to be one of us. And if you are a refugee, you know that you are also a missionary in this part of the world. You have something to give, even your experience, your testimony, what you have learned, you can bring it to this local congregation. So they need it. So you need to be, so as we expect the church to be welcoming and open, we need also you as a refugee to be active. Because if you are welcomed by a local church, but you are not interested, then they cannot help you. So you need to be active, you need to be interested, and you need to ask questions, and you need to basically work hard to find your own place among your brothers and sisters. So you don't need to be shy because you don't speak the language, or maybe you don't understand so many things. We just need to basically be who you are, and you will be accepted as you are. You don't need to change anything. We just need to say, this is who I am, and the church will be able to help you. For example, if some of the churches, for example, have translation. If somebody doesn't speak the language, there are people who might know the language, would help them to share what is in their heart. You don't need to be silent because you don't speak the language, but you need to be active. And when you are active, you want to be part of the family. Definitely, the welcome and you being active will work together, and you can go through the integration and the resettlement very quickly.
Yeah.
That's what happens, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And there's quite a few different challenges in what you just said. So there's one for the church over making a space for people from a refugee background to serve and belong and be a part of the church community. I think it's so important that our churches don't just treat people seeking refuge as a project, as something on the side of the church. We help our refugees on a Thursday morning, we've done a good job, but refugees are included in every part of the church life and the church community and the makeup as well, which is a big learning journey, and none of us have got that perfect yet by any means, but it's a journey that God wants to take us on. But also for people from a refugee background to be proactive in getting involved in a church community as well, and finding places to serve and to volunteer and be a part of the church as well. One thing I've noticed, some cultures that are different to the UK culture can kind of wait to be asked to do something. So you sit back and you kind of lean back and wait until you're asked to participate or to volunteer or to take a leadership role. Whereas actually, I think in our UK churches, our leaders look for people who are showing initiative, and they look for the people who are being proactive and getting involved, and then they're the people that they ask to get more involved, or they might give different opportunities to. So it's so important to not just wait for people to ask you to join in, but to try and step out, and that can be quite uncomfortable, and you need to be a bit brave to do that, don't you?
That's right, yeah. So we say, for example, integration in general is a two-way process.
Absolutely.
So while the church is expected to be welcoming, but also you need to be active as well. You need to want to be part of it. You need to want to bring the gift that you have. So as you said, if somebody is not interested, even how much you're welcome, it will not make any difference, because you step back, So also one of the benefits when people come to us, we learn from them, and they learn from us. So churches also would learn, like when somebody comes from a different culture, like, you know, what does it look like in their culture, for example, you know? So some of the cultures, things are built around relationships. In some cultures, you know, are more active than others, you know. So you can come today and then you want to be friend to everybody. So all these things are a learning process, and that's the blessing that we have as churches, to learn these things and to be able to represent God's presence in supporting refugees and also supporting our local congregation.
Yeah. One of the questions we get asked quite a bit from churches is, how do you welcome someone if they don't speak English? What does that look like? And surely the priority is to learn English above everything else. What's your experience been there in terms of language barriers and communicating with people across those?
Yeah, so it's really a good question, because it really, when you don't understand the language and when the church don't know your language, is really difficult to start with. But you know, the language itself should not be a problem, because technology now really helping us to do this. For example, we have Google Translation,
Google Translate,
that understands all the languages. We have all other tools that will help us, you know. So in supporting people, it should not be a problem. You know, you use Google Translation, you use all the apps that we have, you know, it helps, you know. And while doing this, people will learn the language, and also you learn the language in a way, even if you don't intend to learn it like as they want to learn your language, but the communication will be possible. So we have so many things, you know. For example, during worship services, we have this translation, you know, app that really help people to be connected just through their phone. They can be connected and understand what is going on in the church. So we are blessed today because we have so many tools, you know, that can help us. Yeah, but sometimes when people don't understand the language, so it really makes them less active in terms of contributing to. So somebody will say, I wish I would know the language so that I have something in my heart, but I'm not able to do it. But we have so many other ways, and that's the training we have, you know. When we have all these trainings, we are trying to use the tools that we have, the resources that we have, to make things work well, especially the communication. It shouldn't be a problem now. So churches could find other ways to deal with that, using, for example, people who are gifted in other languages, you know, apps that we have and tools that we have. It should work well. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think it's something in my culture, in the British culture, that for myself, I always need to be busy and I want a job to do, and that's when I feel most valued and feel most involved in something. But one thing I've learned as I welcome people from different cultures is how important it is just to be present with somebody, and it doesn't matter if you don't have a really big, in-depth conversation about the meaning of life or whatever it might be, but just by being present with somebody, especially if somebody has gone through pain and suffering and trauma, to sit with them and be with them is the priority, really, before the conversation and before the language. And that's another journey that we go on, of challenge and of blessing as well as we do that.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
We've scratched the surface of lots of different issues today and different topics, haven't we? And all of the things that we've talked about, you could go into far more detail on exploring who is coming to the UK, exploring what a cross-cultural welcome looks like, exploring how refugees get involved in the life of the church. And these are all things that welcome churches are equipped to train churches in, aren't we? And we're just inviting churches to join with us on that journey by joining our Welcome Network. So you can find out more about that at welcomechurches.org and lots more information about being involved with us. But as we come to a close, Samuel, what is it that you're excited about for the UK church as they welcome refugees?
I'm really excited about, you know, how the church come together to do this. especially being in contact with so many churches who are part of the network. I'm really excited about how all these churches understand this is something we can do together, despite of our denominations, despite of our local congregations. We can do this together.
Yeah.
As all churches pray together, everybody can pray. We can also support refugees. This is our collective mission.
Yeah.
And I'm very, very excited about this. Seeing churches, for example, want to do more, want to learn, want to welcome, want to make everybody. It's really wonderful. I'm excited about that. And I have seen that in other nations. For example, when there was a conflict, a war, for example, churches come together. Whenever there are crises, it brings people together. It brings churches together to work together, to have one voice.
Yeah.
And that's what I see through the supporting, refugees through the Welcome, the Welcome Network.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to mention also is that welcoming people and helping them to go through their new life, through integration, is basically, people think sometimes it is a very difficult job. But actually, it is just a one single question, like, how can we help you? You can ask somebody today, they will say, oh, thank you, I don't need any help. But tomorrow, they might have something you want them to help. So it shouldn't be like a burden, like, oh, no. It's just a simple question. Somebody would say, I want to have friends. That's what we can do. I want to learn the language. I want to, so all these questions, when you put them down and you know where to get this is what we call integration. So as a local church, you would make sure that the person has a plan, and this plan, we can implement them in their lives.
Yeah.
I'm very excited about this networking. I'm very excited that every church comes with different gift, different talent from different parts of the country to work together to welcome refugees and welcome our brothers and sisters among us and represent God in our local churches.
Absolutely, yes. And for me, it's about how we then show our communities more of who our God is. As we welcome people from different backgrounds, we get to more fully represent God to our communities. And we also get to learn more about who our God is for ourselves. I've definitely learned more about God as I have I met wonderful people from different nations and with different journeys and different backgrounds. I've learned more about God's hospitality to us and how he welcomes us above everything else, which is fantastic. So we hope that you join us on this journey. We hope that you have been encouraged and inspired by what we've shared, and that you will join our Welcome Network as a church and get involved with what God is doing through the people that he's bringing to the UK seeking refuge here. So do check us out at welcomechurches.org, and we would love to hear from you.